This is the first in a series I'm initiating entitled The Biggest of Bigots. It's a series that goes at it with those in our society who are so monumentally, stunningly, and amazingly removed from the reality that we live in, where they are not superior to anyone else of any gender, race, sexuality, class, anything because of those circumstances. Nor are they special or different or deserving of anything more than any other human you will come across on this planet, by virtue of the traits that I just mentioned. I will be dividing my video into two parts. We're going to be diving into a video by one of the most racist, disingenuous, abhorrent, lacking in self-awareness people. We are responding to Trey Melvin.
Hello, beautiful people.
I can hear the fangirl comments right now. Oh my god, look at this Becky. She's such a fucking racist Nazi. For those of you unfamiliar with Trey Melvin, he is the boy so oppressed that he bought his mother a house. Meanwhile, my white privileged ass can't even afford to upgrade my 4-year-old laptop that I use every single day for YouTubing, editing, all my schoolwork, extra credit, live streaming, and, gaming when I have the time. I wonder when all of those privilege checks are going to start arriving at my doorstep by way of silver platter in the talons of white turtle doves. Woe is you, you poor oppressed thing.
Alright, so I'm just gonna hop right on into this. Dear white people, PewDiePie, whatever the fuck Banks, every white YouTuber and or white person who like to defend other white YouTubers and or white people after they slip up and or willingly say nigger and or nigga.
Don't you know you can't say the N-word? It's derogatory. I mean, it's got history. Unlike all of those other derogatory slang words like zipperhead, faggot, wetback. Wait. You're black, so that means that you can say it. So wait, you want to be treated differently based on your skin tone then? If that's the way you want to play it, you can be the one to tell Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. he can go fuck right off with that stupid dream about judging people by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin, Trey. You could power the East Coast with the amount of spinning that man is doing in his grave.
And I hate to say it, but I gotta send a carbon copy to non-black people of color as well. Just everybody that ain't black. Everybody that ain't black, listen the fuck up.
Oh, fantastic. We're gonna be inclusive then. Wouldn't want to discriminate based on race, now would we? We would never want to do that, right, Trey?
Your opinion of the N-word and how and when it should and should not be used does not fucking matter.
'Cause I'm white? Okay, so because of my skin tone, I am impeded from committing an action, says you. Because of my skin color. Where have I heard this one before? I swear to God it sounds familiar. Early American history when we had discrimination laws and, the Civil Rights Act fought to defeat that whole outrageous, abhorrent display of injustice. Remember that whole thing people used to fight against? Discrimination? That is what you are advocating for, Trey. But please, do carry on. Dig a hole that is deeper.
Okay. And I just can't believe that we are a couple months away from 2018 and I still have to exhaust my precious energy and sit my black ass here and explain to you why.
A current year argument in 2017. I can do that too, Trey. I can't believe we're a couple months away from 2018 and I have to explain to you why it's wrong to advocate for the race-based discrimination of vocabulary usage.
But if I don't, who will?
But if I don't, then who the fuck will?
Just a generous heads up to white people and non-black people of color who obviously think that this is a simple issue to attack. My commentary on this subject matter is going to be very, very long. Because it's very, very long, I'm going to separate it into two parts. Part 1 will consist of how your use of the term nigga disenfranchises my black ass. And part 2 will consist of the linguistic and pragmatic use of the term nigga. Big words being used here, I know.
So, just for the people in the back, this is not how you address people in a world where you want to be treated as equals. Condescending to people, and that's exactly what this is. It's the molasses speech where he emphasizes the endings of big words. He uses It's what one would use in instances where one thinks they are intellectually superior to a human being they are talking down to. Trey, this is not how you conduct productive conversation. This is how you start an argument, because, and Trey, I'm sure you're aware of this, since you're a big boy and know all about linguistics and pragmatics, although I don't know why you would include both pragmatics as well as linguistics when one literally falls under the umbrella of the other. You, and I mean this generally, as it is not unique to when you specifically speak down to people, piss people off when you talk down to them like they're idiots. So Trey, if you had any actual inclination to be productive in achieving a goal when initiating these videos, you would have omitted that asinine display of classless condescension. I can use big words too, how about that?
Let's begin. Part 1. Quick question, white people and non-black people of color. How many of you are in any way, shape, or form affected by the terms nigger and or nigga?
That, my dear Trey, depends on said person's personal understanding and relationship with said word itself. There are a few schools of thought here. There's people, such as myself, who don't care to use it in everyday conversation because its use is of little meaning and of consequence to us. Now, I don't use the word nigga or nigger because it's simply not imperative to my everyday vocabulary. As is the same with words such as pussy, disestablishmentarianism, cuck, I don't even use that in real life. These are all words that I'm aware of that I just have no use for. However, there are a few words that I do use every day and that remain outside of the general populace's vocabulary, such as shenanigans, diddly, and fuck. Then we derive to those who also don't say the word but for completely different reasons. These are people who choose not to say it because they believe that it connotes differently in general. For whatever reason, they choose to ascribe deeper meaning to sounds and hence choose to limit themselves, to separate themselves from the proverbial uncleanness of said word. Now, this mode of thought, while I understand it, is a rather ridiculous one to me. Because, let's say for instance, I use the term blue gum in everyday language just off the cuff. No normal layperson, the general public, knows what the fuck I'm talking about, so no one gets offended. No one loses their collective shit, and certainly not on such a massive scale. Trey, you would not have to make this video in 2 parts. If, say, PewDiePie had said blue gum instead of nigger, despite the fact that it is also a racial slur. Then there are the third type of people. These are the people who don't give a rat's ass and say it every day, in any context, no thought of the connotation whatsoever. Finally, we have the fourth group of people. These are the people who know exactly what nigger connotates and will use it with the explicit intent to convey that deeper meaning, knowing full well the emotional impact it will have on the person they're using it against. You, Trey, as far as I can tell, fall into the second group of people. However, you fall into said group of people under the condition of skin color.
None of you? I might be going out on a limb here, but I fucking thought so. Your use of nigga makes me feel unsafe. It makes me feel as though I am in danger. Whether or not you mean to inflict harm using the term, I still feel that way. My black ass still feels that way. Black people still feel that way.
And that, to me, sounds like a personal problem. I bet you there are black people with completely different opinions than you out there. In fact, can I get some token black gentlemen to help me out here, please and thank?
That's where you and I differ, Trey. Non-black people's use of the N-word doesn't affect me at all. Why? Because unlike you, I choose not to let that word affect me in such a negative way. Because that's all it is. A word. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Unless you're throwing a encyclopedia, but that's just sad. Like Trey Melvin here. So the minute you get out your feelings and stop letting that word affect you, the more happier you'll be. Like me.
Yeah, I'm not really affected when a non-black person uses the word nigger or nigga. I don't really have that ancestral PTSD that some people claim to have.
How do I feel when white people use the words nigger or nigga? I don't feel anything, they're just words. Words only have as much power as you let them. If I let them saying that affect how I view myself and how I live my life, it says more about how I view myself than how they view me.
I remember going to a family reunion in Philly, and my cousins were talking on my aunt's porch with me. and she peeked her head out of the door and said, "Y'all niggas better get the hell off my porch." When I told my dad about that, he just laughed and said, "Yeah, she does that to everyone." And after that, the word has not bothered me since. Otherwise, I probably would stop listening to rap music and like any comedian out there or celebrity. In the end, it's just a word. It doesn't have any power other than what you yourself give it.
Your use of nigga validates the white man who owned and raped my great-grandmother in Mississippi, who gave birth to my biracial grandfather, who created my mother.
Does it, or are you just saying that it does? Please, connect the dots for me, Trey. I am but a lowly white person lacking in melanin.
It validates the high school and college education that my grandparents were not fortunate enough to receive simply because the color of their skin was a little too dark.
Again, how does the use of the N-word validate that in any way? And I know you've done two of these seemingly profound heartstring tugs, and if I were a more compassionate soul and less obsessed with cold hard facts and logic, I would probably empathize more with said plight of your ancestors. However, that was years ago, before the world became so progressive that ambiguous signs that say it's okay to be white resulted in the country having a hissy fit.
It validates my light-skinned mother hiding on the floor of her dark-skinned stepfather's car every single time he was behind the wheel out of fear that white people would assume that she was white and that he kidnapped her.
Now see, that's not a black people problem so much as it's an adult male problem. Want to know how I know that? Because I've actually covered a story in my #EverythingIsSexist series where a girl's father was accused of being a pedo when he went on vacation with his daughter. #EverythingIsSexist. Travelodge manager accuses father of being a pedophile when he booked in with his daughter. But yeah, racialize that shit.
It validates the guns that were pointed at my forehead by the police department of Fairborn, Ohio, after I was accused of looting and breaking into a home in their predominantly white suburb.
Okay, Trey, I'll bite. Show me the police report. Or better yet, tell me the exact date that this incident occurred so that I can mail in or call in a request with the Fairborn Police Department to see the police report regarding this incident. Reports, these are public record. That means that any curious soul, me, can look them up. All I need is a name and a date, and it should be there since they pulled out their guns and pointed them at your face. But we, you say. Police don't always follow reports, so there's no guarantee that there would be a report. Let's listen to what I think you'll find very interesting.
It validates my arrest that day. It validates the time I spent in jail that day.
If there is an arrest, and I will reiterate this one more time, if there is an arrest, then there is a report.
It validates the insignificance of my innocence that day.
That day, that whole day you spent in jail. You know, Trey, there are people who've been put away with a lot less evidence for a whole lot longer than you. And that is people of all creeds and genders whose lives have been ruined because accusations were made and the wrong person made the wrong decision to convict them. But please do go on about how a single word validates your one night in jail. You know, I've had family members spend that amount of time and longer behind bars. I've had family members nearly get in deep shit with their Marine units because they were falsely accused like hours before they were due back for deployment, but they never chalked it up to the racism of black people. Or a word.
It validates the countless times I've been pulled over by the police simply for driving on the wrong side of town. It validates my inability to trace my family tree, my bloodline, back to its African roots because, let's be honest, my ancestors were brought to this country against their will and completely and utterly stripped of everything. It validates Google's ability to take money out of my pocket, to refuse to pay me for my time, to demonetize this video and 100% of my videos that address my pain, that address injustice because it's too controversial, because it isn't brand friendly.
Trey, newsflash, it's not just you. Everyone is getting demonetized by an algorithm. My live streams tend to get demonetized before I even begin to stream them. It's most certainly not a race thing. It's a computers are stupid, the algorithm is still learning because computers are stupid, so everyone and their mother suffers problem.
It validates every single white person that I've come into contact with since the day that I learned how to utilize my tongue, who have labeled me not black enough because I speak proper English. It validates every black person I've ever come across who has labeled me not black enough because I speak proper English.
Maybe you're associated with the wrong people, Trey.
It validates the term fair skin, referring to lighter skin.
Are you fucking serious? That's what you think is a racial issue? That's what you're focused on. You know you live in a racist and oppressive country when a single fucking word validates the repressive regime of the term fair skin.
And society's favor of men and women with Eurocentric traits and features.
What?
It validates the media's dehumanization of black features on black people, but praised on white people. It
Really?
validates the exclusion of dark-skinned black women in commercials and fashion shows.
Hold the fuck up. Black women aren't being represented? What the frick?
And cosmetic lines. It validates the employers and school principals who have fired and suspended black women because the natural hair that grows out of their scalps is not relaxed enough for their liking.
Citation, please. Now, I will admit there are stories of people being fired for having box braids or dreads, but let me just say, those aren't actually natural hairstyles. That's manufactured hairstyles, not a natural hairstyle. Again, that's a manufactured hairstyle, not a natural hairstyle. Your hair does not grow out of your head braided and dreaded. It takes a little bit of, something else to do that to your hair. However, there have been cases of people fired for not shaving their beard if you want to take that route. In most cases, there's a good reason why the profession requires certain hairstyles. For instance, if you're handling food, it's usually required that you wear your hair pulled back because no one wants hair in their food, and that's a health concern. The military requires that you wear your hair short and close to the head, which means that, box braids are out again because, let's be real, if you're wearing a gas mask or a helmet, that kind of defeats the purpose. If there is no legit reason, then it's well within your rights to pursue legal action, and you can do that, Trey. Anyone can do that. That is the beauty of the country that you live in, Trey.
It validates the jobs that black women and black men are deprived of solely based upon their Afrocentric name.
Again, citation please, because I could give you a whole host of examples of affirmative action policies that state the contrary.
It validates your privilege to mock and belittle and judge black women and black men based solely upon their Afrocentric name.
That would be the First Amendment, Trey, not privilege. It is also your constitutional right to do the exact counter of that act, Trey. Because it is your privilege, Trey, to be living in a country where you are a free man, as equally capable of anything as anyone else in this country.
It validates the staggering statistic that mathematics classes in high-poverty high schools are twice as likely to be taught by a teacher with a credential other than mathematics. It validates the staggering statistic that science class teachers at high-poverty high schools are 3 times as likely to be credentialed in areas other than science. It validates every single outdated textbook, every single textbook in short supply, every single outdated computer, every single outdated form of technology, inadequate or non-existent science equipment, materials, and labs, lack of creative arts, and the significant lag in the amount and variety of college preparatory or advanced placement offerings in high-poverty schools opposed to schools serving more advantaged population.
Again, I would ask for a citation so that I could read these statistics for myself, but at least you're addressing legitimate issues now, Trey. We're finally getting somewhere productive at roughly 6 minutes in.
It validates the estimated 4 million cases of housing discrimination each year from the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Well, that's actually pretty interesting. Just let me... wherever did you receive that statistic from? There were 28,181 complaints of housing discrimination in 2016. These complaints took many forms: a college denying a student a reasonable accommodation request, denial of mobile home rentals to African American applicants, discriminatory concentration of affordable housing, refusal to rent to people with mental disabilities, housing discrimination on social media platforms and sites like Airbnb, discriminatory targeting of predatory lending against borrowers refinancing their mortgages, or discriminatory maintenance and marketing of bank-owned post-foreclosure properties. This number is likely way low. Most people don't report racial, ethnic, or religious housing discrimination. NFHA estimates that more than 4 million cases of housing discrimination occur each year. Now, see, I went and tracked down the actual report they're citing, which, it turns out, cites a separate report
from 2006.
And guess what I could not find? That 4 million estimate. But what's also interesting is that, despite what I found misrepresented in the report, not the one that didn't say Jack Diddley Squat from 2006, but the one that cites the 2006 report, you said that the use of the N-word,
it validates the estimated 4 million cases of housing discrimination each year from the National Fair Housing Alliance.
which denotes that it is substantially racial discrimination that's going on here, but that's simply not the case. Even if those estimations were correct at 4 million? Because that's what they technically are. Estimations that are as of yet unfounded of unreported cases of discrimination, which I would really like to know how they got those numbers. They're disproportionately cases of disability discrimination, clocking in at around 55% based, on that article that you and I got this information from.
It validates Sandra Bland and Philando Castile and Tamir Rice and Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner and so on and so forth's unlawful deaths at the hands of the police.
Brian Encina is no longer an officer in Waller County and will never work in law enforcement again. Jerome Nyanze is no longer an officer with St. Anthony Police Department. Timothy Lowerman is no longer an officer with the Cleveland Police Department. Darren Wilson, no longer an officer with the Ferguson Police Department. George Zimmerman no longer works at the Sanford Police Department. The only officer in any of these cases that you've mentioned that still works at the precinct is Daniel Pentello. He is the only officer still on duty of the cases that you have just mentioned. Now, I won't get into whether or not these deaths were justified. That's not what I'm trying to argue here. Your argument is that these deaths are a validation of the N-word. How that's the case, I have no clue. You had yet to explain it to me. But if I were to liberally apply logic to your claims, by any standards, a ratio of 1 to 5, that is, officers who are still employed to officers that are not still employed with the relevant PDs, does not a validation make, Trey?
It validates your privilege to say they were killed because they were thugs. It validates your privilege to say if Sandra Bland were to have used her turn signal that day, then she would not have died. It validates your privilege to label black people who kill black people black on black crime.
That's what it is. Black on black crime is the actual thing that is occurring. And whether or not you like it, it is an issue that needs addressing, as much as a lack of police training does, or housing discrimination, or what have you.
It validates your privilege to mock the amount of black people who kill black people, as if you have an ounce of an idea what it is like to grow up in high poverty areas and the vicious bloodshed cycle of growing up in high poverty areas.
Trey, are you saying that white people have never grown up in high poverty areas? Let's take a look at the rate of poverty in America, because I bet I can shock you, Trey. U.S. poverty rates by race, selected detailed race and Hispanic origin groups 2007 to 2011. You'll find that the national inclusive number sits at around 42,739,924. That's every single race, every single ethnicity, every single person in poverty. From 2007 to 2011, that's 4 years. The number of black people in poverty at this time sits at around 9,472,583. Now, would you like to know how many white people were in poverty during this time, Trey? I bet you would. 25,659,922. If we're discounting people of Hispanic origin, that number drops slightly to 18,959,814. And that's still a fucking lot, Trey. And yes, I will acknowledge that if you were to do the math, you would find that black people are disproportionately represented in these statistics for the number of people in the population that represent black people as a whole. I don't deny it. However, that was not the argument, Trey. Trey, you implied that people, presumably those of non-black privilege, had not even an ounce of any idea what it's like to grow up below the poverty line. While I'm at it, why don't I just include other ethnicities, since he's encompassed all of us into a lump sum of privilege, and unlike Trey here, I don't discriminate based on race. American Indian and Native Alaskan, alone or in combination, 1,130,661. Asians, 1,899,448. Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander alone or in combination, 156,717. Some other race alone, 3,792,156. Two or more races, 1,450,388. Hispanic origin, 11,197,648. You see, Trey, skin color and heritage does not a privilege make.
It validates your privilege to tell me to get over slavery, as if the effects of slavery do not affect me to this day.
Trey, you'll be delighted to know that slavery still exists today. And I say delighted because it gives you something to be thankful for, and something to complain about that we can actually do something about. Be thankful you do not live in Africa at this moment, where contemporary slavery is the most problematic, specifically in the Horn of Africa, referred to as Samheel. I think that's how you pronounce it, where human trafficking exists. You know, child soldiers, child laborers, sex slavery, pick your fancy. But maybe that's not enough, Trey. Even within some of the wealthiest countries, such as the United States, you know, all of Western Europe, and in the Middle East, slavery still exists in the form of forced migration labor. But maybe that's not enough. Let's also take a trip back to Africa, and maybe the Americas, Asian Pacific, where child sex trafficking is most prevalent. You see, Trey, for you to sit there and complain about the effects of slavery that your ancestors faced many, many years ago, and the crippling effect it has on you today, while simultaneously being ignorant or just flat out ignoring the fact that it is still a problem today, is a giant slap in the face to all of those who are vastly more affected by slavery today. Trey.
It validates your privilege to tell me, well, if one black person can do it, why can't the rest of you? It validates the fairly simple fact that I have to sit here and waste my beautiful time and my beautiful energy explaining this to you.
No one asked you to make this video. You did this because you felt the need to advocate and justify racial discrimination. But what do I know? I'm just a lowly white girl.
Because you're too fucking lazy to ask Siri.
No one ever seriously accused me of being lazy before. Obsessive, yes. Determined, yes. Argumentative, yes. Autistic even, yes. As evident by my sitting through this entire video and listening to you ramble on for about 10 minutes while scripting out my every eloquent response to you. Trey, I am not lazy. I just disagree with you, and I am certainly not the only one who does.
It validates your privilege to avoid asking Siri because you are not impacted.
You criticized in this same video racist technology, the YouTube algorithm, that is somehow validated by the use of the N-word. Still not sure exactly how the N-word validates all of these things at once, but I guess we're getting there. And you want me to ask Siri about this topic specifically? As if she's also, not by your logic, a little bit racist too?
It validates the simple fact that this country had to greenlight my existence the year that my mother and my father were born.
You know, Trey, you make a fair point. It did take us a while to get the concept of civil rights for all established. I mean, gay people only just got the right to marry. You know, there are actually like 7 state constitutions that include religious tests that prevent atheists from holding public office in Arkansas, Maryland, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas. But you know, your personal existence was in jeopardy decades before your birth, and that makes you so much less privileged than anyone.
This country gave my blackness permission to be and breathe the year my mother and my father were born.
What in the world could Trey be referring to?
My parents were born the same year that my people were constitutionally given the right to vote.
Guys, do you understand what Trey is saying to you? Because I don't think you do. He is telling you that you are more privileged than he is because of a time lapse that existed decades before he was even born. But that's not all, guys. Apparently, and this is going to shock you, I know, but his parents are apparently 148 years old. Because, the 15th Amendment was passed in 1869, which stated that all native-born American men, including African Americans, had the right to vote. Granted, that right only extended to Trey's father. It would have not extended to his mother until 1920, when the 19th Amendment was passed that allowed females to vote. So technically, Trey, you've had your existence validated for much longer than me. Go figure. But, and this is most likely what Trey is referring to, either the 24th Amendment, which outlawed the poll tax, or the Voting Rights Act in 1965, which put a stop to election practices that denied races and ethnicities. It's probably what he's referring to. I don't exactly think Trey's parents are 148 years old. That would be silly. I think that Trey's either a fool because he is too lazy to surrey that shit, or just misunderstood the concept dramatically. Or, another likely answer, he's being a disingenuous fuck.
Your use of nigga validates hundreds of years of inhumane pain and suffering in the form of kidnapping, Middle Passage, slavery, family separation, rape, dismemberment, murder, terrorism, institutionalized segregation, redlining, profiling, and public school pipeline to adult incarceration.
And again, you have yet to explain how the use of a single word that causes an uproar in the media when PewDiePie, a Swedish man, uses it, validates all these things in America, which, by the way, are not all unique to black people, and still happen today, Trey.
Most of you can't even spell public school pipeline to adult incarceration. Google it.
That's a non sequitur, but you're not wrong. I can't spell worth a damn. Thank you, public high school.
You sit there and you use the term and someone corrects you and you scream at the top of your white and non-black people of color lungs, but I'm not a racist. 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 And I am absolutely convinced that none of you actually know what racism is.
Oh, and you do? You alone out of all of the white and non-black people of color and black people of color who might not share your line of thinking know exactly what racism entails, because
white people's definition of racism is hurt feeling.
Did you just assume something about me based on my skin color? Trey, that's very hurtful. How dare.
Instead of what it actually is, which is the systematic destruction of an ethnic group.
And here I was thinking that it was the belief in one's own race superiority over other races. Silly me and my whiteness. When will I learn I'm not the great Trey Melvin? I am but a lowly, white, or non-black person of color who disagrees with Trey. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Fuck your hurt feelings. You sit there offended when black people ask you not to use the term, and it is simply mind-boggling. When the fuck did this become about you?
Well, Trey, when you lumped me in with the rest of all the privileged people out there who didn't happen to be black.
Why is everything about you?
It's about races. There are whites, there are blacks, there are Asians, there are Native Americans, there are what, take your pick, fancy, whatever, I don't care. We all deserve a seat at the table, Trey, and the moment you start denying people that seat based on their race is the moment you lose the high ground, and the moment you lose any and all respect from people.
Everything is not about you.
You hear that? White and non-black people of color, it's not about you, says Trey Melvin.
Black people cannot police what you should and should not say when we are not around. But when we are around, please stop telling us what we should and should not be offended by, what we should and should not be affected by, when you and your humanity are in no way, no shape, and no form affected yourself.
You see, the funny thing, Trey, and my point is, words only have as much power as you give them. So people can call me a slut, a cam whore, a bitch, or a cracker as much as they damn well please, but it has absolutely no effect on me regardless of who is saying those words to me. And there are a lot of people like me, black and not black people alike, who have the same mentality as I with regards to that word. Thus, they are not affected, just as there are a lot of people, black and not black alike, who are affected, because emotionally, they lose their collective minds. I'm 100% certain no one has ever been sent to the hospital directly because someone said a word. So Trey, unless you're an established authority figure on all things in the black community, which I don't think you are, you do not get to tell people what to say and what not to say based on any sort of metric. Look kids, I'm not saying that I desperately want to say the N-word just so I can sit at the cool kids table with the fruit by the foot. No, I don't give a rat's ass. It's a 6-letter word with a rather bad history. You know what else is a bad history as well? Kellogg's. But I don't give a shit. I don't consume Kellogg's products. It's a non-issue. You know what I do? I use my mouth to speak, and if for some reason people can and cannot say things simply because of the color of their skin, then that concerns me, Trey. If we are regressing to race-based discrimination, no matter the fucking context, then you are going to have a problem with me. Capiche? And that, Trey, all fallacious arguments aside, is why you are the biggest of bigots. I just want to thank all those who helped make this video possible. All their appropriate links can be found in the description. Thank you guys so much, and you are so fantastic. On another note, if you like me, consider hopping over to my Patreon or my Teespring store to support me. Helps out a whole bunch. Maybe get myself a new laptop so that I don't have to work so hard. If you like me, but not necessarily that much, please like, share, and subscribe. Every little bit helps. Thanks, guys, and peace. The things I do for YouTube. They see me rolling. They hating, patrolling. They're trying to catch me riding dirty.